My wife of 7 years cheated with a married man from Hinge. Hello, true story. My name is Justin. I've been watching your channel for a while now, and I finally got the courage to send in my story. I never thought I'd be one of the men writing to you, but life has a way of humbling you. I've been married for 7 years, and what I went through this past year has completely changed how I view relationships, commitment, and what people are capable of when they're bored. I met my ex-wife Emily on a fishing trip in Virginia back in 2013. I was living in Pennsylvania at the time, and a buddy of mine invited me to go down with him for a long weekend. He knew some locals, and one of them happened to be Emily's cousin. She wasn't even supposed to come that day. She tagged along last minute because her cousin didn't want to be the only woman there. I remember the first time I saw her. She was standing near the dock, squinting into the sun, holding one of those little travel mugs of coffee and wearing an oversized hoodie with her hair tied up. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She looked natural, and that's what caught my attention. We hit it off almost instantly. She wasn't one of those look at me type of women. She was down to earth, funny, and could hold a conversation. We spent most of that trip talking about work, family, life goals, all the usual early connection stuff. I went back home that Sunday, and by Monday we were texting nonstop. By Friday, we were already talking about when we'd see each other again. That started our 2-year long-distance relationship. It wasn't easy. She worked at a marketing firm, and I worked construction management for a commercial contractor. We'd visit each other once or twice a month, and every time it got harder to say goodbye. By the end of that second year, I decided I was done with long distance. I moved down to Virginia. That was a huge step for me, leaving my family, friends, and job behind. But I did it because I believed she was the one. We got engaged about 6 months after I moved and married the following spring in 2016. We had a small wedding by a lake with just close friends and family. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the woman I will grow old with. The first few years of marriage were good. We both worked full time, split bills, and were saving for a house. Emily was driven and responsible, but she also had this playful, easygoing side that made being around her fun. We didn't argue much, and when we did, it was about minor stuff like chores or weekend plans. I honestly thought we were solid. In 2020, everything changed. Pandemic hit, and her company started doing layoffs. She was one of the first to go. I told her not to worry. My job was still stable, and I could cover us until she found something new. She started saying she wanted to take some time off to figure out what she really wanted. I didn't see the harm at first. She'd worked nonstop since college, so I thought a short break might even help her reset. A few months turned into a year. Then she decided she wanted to be a stay-at-home wife for a while. She started doing yoga, gardening, cooking new recipes, and posting pictures of our life like everything was perfect. From the outside, we looked like the model couple. But inside, something was changing. She became distant, emotionally cold. Conversations that used to flow turned into one-word answers. I'd come home from work and find her scrolling endlessly on her phone. She'd smile when she looked at it, but the second I walked in, she'd lock the screen or flip the phone over. When I'd ask what she was watching, she'd say just TikToks or Pinterest stuff. I wanted to believe her, but something in my gut said otherwise. By early 2023, the tension was unbearable. We weren't intimate much anymore. Every time I'd try to plan something romantic, dinner, weekend getaway, even a movie night, she'd find a reason to say no. I tried talking to her about it one night, and she snapped. She said, "You don't get it, Justin. I'm not happy. I feel like my life stopped when I became your wife." That hit me hard. I'd given up everything to move down here and build a life with her. I told her we could work through whatever was wrong, but she just shrugged it off. Then one night in March, she said she was going out with some girls from yoga. Something about her tone didn't sit right, so I waited up. Midnight passed, 1 o'clock, 2. She didn't come home until nearly 3 a.m. She claimed they lost track of time. The next morning I asked what restaurant they went to, and she hesitated before answering. That hesitation told me everything I needed to know. I started paying attention, really paying attention. She'd leave her phone face down. She'd suddenly start taking long walks after dinner. She'd take a shower right after getting home, something she never used to do. Then one night, while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed. A notification popped up from an app I didn't recognize. Hinge. I froze. My heart started pounding. I waited for her to get out, pretending I hadn't seen anything. That night I couldn't sleep. The next day, while she was at yoga, I did what I never thought I'd do. I opened her iPad. She had messages synced to it. What I found shattered me. She'd been talking to a man named Ryan for over 3 months. They met on Hinge, started with small talk, then gradually became flirtatious. She told him she was in a complicated marriage and that she needed excitement again. The messages were disgusting. I read her calling him her escape, saying things like, "I feel alive again when I'm with you." They had met up multiple times. She even sent him pictures from our house in our bed. I don't think I've ever felt rage like that before. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the iPad. I took screenshots of everything, every message, every picture. I wasn't going to let her twist the story later. But it didn't stop there. I wanted to know who this Ryan guy was, so I did some digging. His last name was visible in one of his emails. I found his LinkedIn, then his Facebook. That's when I found something she didn't even know. Ryan was married. He had 2 kids. I saw pictures of him and his wife on vacation just 2 weeks before he and Emily were sexting. That was the moment I decided to go full investigator mode. I found his wife's Facebook, went through her posts, and eventually found her email address through one of her small business pages. I debated it for a couple of days, but my conscience couldn't let another person live in the dark. I sent her everything, screenshots, dates, even a short summary of what had been happening. I kept it factual, no emotion, no drama, just the truth. She replied 2 days later. She thanked me and said she'd suspected something for a while but didn't have proof. She asked me to call her, and when I did, she broke down crying. She told me she and Ryan had 2 kids, ages 6 and 8. She said he'd been acting distant for months. I told her I was sorry, but I couldn't sit by and let him play both sides. After that, I confronted Emily. I'll never forget that night. I had everything printed out on the kitchen table. She walked in and froze when she saw the papers. I didn't yell. I just asked, "Who is Ryan?" At first, she tried to play dumb. "I don't know what you're talking about." Then, when I slid the printed screenshots toward her, her face went pale. She sat down and started crying, saying it wasn't what it looked like. I told her, "You were sleeping with a married man. Don't insult my intelligence." She said she never planned for it to happen, that it just got out of control. I asked her one question, so why? Why would you throw away 7 years of marriage? Why would you betray someone who gave up everything for you? Her answer still haunts me. She said, "I was bored. Being home all day made me feel like I was disappearing. I just wanted to feel wanted again." That's when I realized she wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry she got caught. I told her to pack a bag and leave. The next morning, she called her mom. Within hours, her entire family was calling me, begging me not to make any rash decisions. Her mom said, "Justin, no one in our family has ever been divorced. Please think about counseling." Her dad told me I was ruining tradition. I told them I didn't care about tradition. I cared about loyalty. Over the next few weeks, she tried everything. She cried, begged, offered to go to counseling, even tried to get me to read books about rebuilding trust. I told her I was done. That's when the manipulation started. She filed for separation and refused to agree to a no-fault divorce. Virginia makes it difficult when one person doesn't cooperate. She dragged it out for months, saying she needed time to heal. Every time I tried to move forward, she'd find a new excuse. She wouldn't sign paperwork, missed meetings, and used the system to stall me. I was living in limbo. The stress was unbearable. My sleep was shot, my work performance dropped, and my appetite disappeared. My friends tried to get me to move out, but legally, I had to stay put until certain steps were finalized. It was a nightmare. She'd text me random things like, "We can fix this," or "I still love you." One night, she showed up crying, saying she had a dream about us growing old together. I told her dreams don't erase betrayal. Eventually, after months of back and forth, she realized I wasn't changing my mind. She tried one last card: guilt. She said, "Do you really want to be the first divorce in our family?" I told her, "I'd rather be the first divorce than the last fool." Even her family started seeing through her. Her mom called me privately and admitted she didn't know Emily had been cheating. She said she was ashamed. I told her I didn't hold anything against them. This was between me and their daughter. The divorce process itself was brutal. Virginia requires a separation period before granting a divorce, so I had to live with the constant reminder of her betrayal while the legal clock ticked. She kept trying to manipulate the narrative, saying I was overreacting and that everyone makes mistakes. I stayed calm through it all. I didn't retaliate. I didn't smear her name. I just documented everything and let the truth speak for itself. Her affair partner's wife ended up leaving him, and from what I heard, he tried reaching out to Emily again afterward, but she blocked him. I guess she finally realized the fantasy wasn't worth the fallout. I'm still in the process of finalizing the divorce as I write this, but I can finally breathe again. I lost a wife, but I gained peace. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that people can love you and still betray you when they stop loving themselves. Emily wasn't cheating because I mistreated her or ignored her. She cheated because she got bored and needed validation from strangers. That's something no amount of marriage counseling can fix. To the younger men listening to your channel, take it from me. Never ignore your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't let love blind you to the reality of someone's actions. And never be afraid to walk away from a situation that's killing you emotionally. After what felt like the longest, most emotionally exhausting stretch of my life, I can finally say I'm divorced. It became official a little over 2 months ago, and I can't even describe the mix of relief and closure that came with it. It wasn't joy exactly. It was more like the feeling you get after finally finishing a marathon barefoot over glass. You're not celebrating the pain. You're just glad it's over. Looking back at the man I was a year ago, I barely recognize him. I was broken, drained, confused, and angry. I was desperate for answers from someone who didn't even care to give them. But today, I'm in a completely different headspace. The road wasn't easy, far from it, but it forced me to rebuild myself from the ground up. Let me tell you what happened after that last email. After I exposed the affair and told Emily I was filing for divorce, she tried everything to delay the inevitable. She filed counter motions, requested extensions, and even accidentally missed a few scheduled meetings with her lawyer. She knew the longer she could drag things out, the more leverage she could try to create. Virginia's divorce process isn't simple, especially when one person refuses to cooperate. She refused to sign off on a mutual separation agreement at first. Her reasoning? I just need time to think. But she wasn't thinking about fixing anything. She was still talking to the same group of friends that encouraged her reckless behavior. Women who spent their days gossiping, drinking wine, and scrolling social media, telling each other how independent they were while secretly miserable. I stayed focused on the goal: peace. Every time she tried to bait me into arguments, I refused to take it. I learned real quick that silence can be a man's greatest weapon. When you stop reacting, manipulators lose their power. About a month after I filed, her mother called me again. She said, "Justin, please don't do this. Emily's really sorry. She's been going to church again and trying to change." I told her that was between her and God. My forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. I told her gently, "Ma'am, I don't hate your daughter, but I can't be married to someone I can't trust." That conversation hurt more than I thought it would. Her family always treated me well before everything fell apart. Her dad and I used to go fishing together. He stopped talking to me after I filed for divorce. I guess pride runs deep in that family. They didn't want to admit their daughter was the one who ruined it. During that separation period, I had to stay in the same house for another 3 months. That was hell. Imagine living under the same roof as someone you can't stand to look at, someone who betrayed you in the worst way, but you still have to play polite to avoid legal complications. Every morning was a test of restraint. I set boundaries. I slept in the guest room, ate separately, and kept communication strictly about bills or paperwork. She didn't like that. She wanted emotional access, not just physical proximity. She'd try to start small talk or reminisce about the good old days. I gave her nothing. She cried some nights, loudly, hoping I'd come comfort her. I didn't. That wasn't cruelty. That was me protecting what was left of myself. The turning point came one evening in late May. She came into the kitchen and said, "Can we just talk like normal adults for a second?" I agreed, thinking maybe she was ready to cooperate. Instead, she tried guilt again. "You're really going to throw away 7 years over one mistake?" I told her, "You threw it away. I'm just acknowledging it." She said, "I was lonely. You were always working." I said, "I was working for us, for this house, these bills, this life you claim you were bored with." She didn't have an answer, just tears and silence. The next morning, I got an email from my lawyer saying she had finally agreed to sign the separation papers. That was the first time I felt like I could see light at the end of the tunnel, but it wasn't over yet. She still tried to use the equitable distribution laws to her advantage. Since Virginia is a no-fault state but considers marital misconduct during property division, she tried to downplay her cheating and claim financial dependency. She said she deserved part of my 401k because she had sacrificed her career to support me. My lawyer laughed when he read her statement. "She sacrificed her career to sit on her phone for 3 years, he said under his breath. We prepared to fight it. I had proof of her affair, screenshots, and the email trail between her and that married man. We submitted it as evidence. At first, she tried to deny everything. Her lawyer even claimed the messages might not be authentic. But once the judge saw the timestamps and cross-referenced phone records, the truth spoke for itself. The court granted me the divorce without any alimony. She didn't get a penny of spousal support. The judge's words still echo in my head. The petitioner has provided sufficient evidence of marital misconduct. That was the cleanest, most validating sentence I'd ever heard. When it was all finalized, I walked out of that courthouse feeling 20 pounds lighter. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just breathed deeply for what felt like the first time in years. Emily texted me that night. "So that's it. You're really done." I replied, "I was done the night you chose someone else." She never replied. About 2 weeks later, a mutual friend told me she had moved out of state, went to stay with an aunt in North Carolina. I guess she needed a fresh start, too. I don't wish her harm. I just hope she learns what real accountability looks like. After she left, I took a long break from everything. Social media, dating, even hanging out with certain people. I needed to detox from the noise. I started going to the gym regularly again, reconnected with my old friends from Pennsylvania, and spent weekends fishing like I used to before life got complicated. Funny how that hobby became a full circle moment for me. I met her on a fishing trip, and after losing her, I found peace the same way, alone by the water. One of the hardest parts of this process wasn't losing her, it was unlearning the version of myself I became while trying to keep her happy. I realized how much I'd compromised over the years just to avoid arguments. I silenced my instincts, ignored my needs, and accepted emotional scraps just to keep the peace. That's not love. That's emotional self-destruction. I started reading again, journaling, and seeing a therapist. I'll be honest, therapy was uncomfortable at first. I didn't want to talk about my feelings with a stranger, but it helped. It gave me perspective. I learned that I wasn't crazy for wanting answers, and I wasn't weak for being hurt. I was human. My therapist asked me once, if Emily came back tomorrow and said she'd changed, what would you do? Without hesitation, I said, I'd wish her well and close the door. That's when I knew I was healed. About 3 months after the divorce, something unexpected happened. I got a message on Facebook from the wife of the man Emily cheated with, Ryan's wife. Her name is Melissa. She wanted to thank me again for telling her the truth. She said she'd finalized her divorce too and was focusing on her kids. She told me Ryan had tried to come back to her, but she refused. She said, "You saved me years of living in a lie." We talked a bit after that. Not romantically, just two people who went through similar hell. There was mutual understanding. She told me her biggest struggle was explaining to her kids why daddy wasn't home anymore. That hit me. Affairs don't just destroy marriages, they destroy entire family systems. Over the summer, I focused on rebuilding. I took on a new project at work that paid off big. I got promoted to regional site supervisor. My boss said he'd noticed my dedication even through my personal chaos. That meant a lot. I poured all that pain into productivity. I moved into a new apartment overlooking the river. It's quiet, peaceful, and mine. I threw out almost everything that reminded me of the marriage, the furniture, the kitchenware she picked, even the old curtains she loved. It felt symbolic, a clean slate. Sometimes at night I catch myself thinking about how different my life would have been if she just communicated instead of cheated. But then I stop myself, because the truth is, she didn't just make a mistake, she made a choice. A mistake is spilling coffee on your shirt. Cheating is a series of conscious decisions. Downloading the app, making the profile, matching, flirting, meeting up, lying about it. That's not boredom, that's betrayal. And you can't rebuild trust on the ashes of deliberate betrayal. People always ask me if I'll ever date again. The answer is yes, but not anytime soon. I'm not scared of love, I'm just not desperate for it anymore. I'd rather be alone in peace than in love with someone who makes me question my worth. If I ever do meet someone new, I'll be taking my time. I won't be rushing into forever because someone says the right things early on. I'll be watching how they act when things get hard. That's where true character shows. To all the men who might hear this story on your channel, let me tell you this. Don't chase closure from the person who broke you. You'll never get the truth that satisfies you because liars can't give honesty. Closure isn't something they give you. It's something you create for yourself when you accept what happened and move on anyway. Don't let anyone guilt trip you for walking away from toxicity. Some families, like hers, will pressure you with tradition, religion, or shame. They'll say you're giving up. No, you're protecting your sanity. There's a difference between giving up and letting go. And most importantly, never lose yourself trying to keep someone else happy. If your presence, loyalty, and effort aren't enough, that person isn't for you. I've learned that peace doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it comes quietly, in the moments you finally stop explaining yourself to people who never wanted to understand. These days, my mornings look different. I wake up early, make coffee, and sit on my balcony watching the sunrise over the river. I don't check her social media. I don't wonder who she's with. I don't replay old arguments. I'm just free. I picked up fishing again on weekends, not to escape, but to enjoy life again. A few months ago, I went back to that same lake in Virginia where we first met. I sat there for hours just thinking. At one point, I laughed to myself, realizing how life came full circle. The same place I met my biggest heartbreak became the place I found peace again. There's no hate left in me, only lessons. I've learned that forgiveness isn't about letting someone back in. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of resentment. I forgive her, but that doesn't mean I forget. It means I accept that what's done is done, and I choose not to let it define me anymore. I've also learned to appreciate solitude. There's strength in being comfortable alone. When you stop fearing your own company, you stop settling for less just to avoid loneliness. So that's where I am now, free, grounded, and rebuilding. My plan moving forward is simple. Keep working, stay focused, and live quietly. Maybe one day I'll share my story on video, but for now, this email feels like enough. I hope my story helps another man out there realize he's not trapped. I was scared to leave because I thought I'd lose everything, but I gained more peace than I ever imagined. The hardest goodbyes often lead to the best peace of mind. I'll send one more update down the road once I've built this new chapter out completely. Maybe when I finally meet someone worth sharing life with again. For now, I'm just taking it day by day, rebuilding piece by piece, and learning to enjoy the silence that comes after the storm. Sometimes life humbles you in ways you never saw coming. If there's one lesson I want to pass on to every man listening to your channel, it's this. Never move for a spouse unless you have your own support system there. I can't stress that enough. When you leave your roots, your friends, your family, and your familiar environment for someone else's world, you're giving up more than geography. You're giving up leverage, community, and stability. You become an outsider in your own life. Let me explain. When I first moved to Virginia, I was in love. I was 29, full of hope, thinking I'd finally found the woman who made life make sense. Emily was everything I thought I wanted. Kind, funny, grounded. We had this chemistry that felt effortless. The long-distance phase made me believe our connection was real because we made it work despite the miles. Every visit felt like a vacation, and absence really did make the heart grow fonder. But that's the trap with long distance. You only see the best version of each other. When I packed my life into a U-Haul and drove 8 hours south, I told myself this was the beginning of forever. I left my parents, my brother, my childhood friends, my job, and the city I grew up in, all for her. I thought that's what commitment looked like. Everyone around me said, "Man, you're doing the right thing. You've got to sacrifice for love." But nobody tells you what happens when that love falls apart and you've got nothing and no one to fall back on. The first few years were fine. Her family welcomed me in. Her parents treated me like a son, and I tried to blend in as best I could. I went to their family cookouts, holidays, birthdays, everything. At the time, I appreciated it. I felt like part of something bigger. But what I didn't realize was that my entire world now revolved around her circle. Every friend I had was connected to her. Every social event, every gathering, every network, all tied to her family. When she cheated and everything fell apart, that entire network vanished overnight. People who once smiled at me, hugged me, and called me family suddenly acted like I was invisible. Some of them even avoided me in public. Others sent half-hearted messages like, "We're praying for both of you." But no one reached out after that. No one offered to help me move out. No one invited me anywhere. I became the outsider again, a ghost in a town I'd helped build a life in. When you move for a spouse, you put all your roots in their soil, and if that soil turns toxic, your entire foundation dies. After the divorce, I tried to stay in Virginia for a while. I told myself I could rebuild there, maybe find new friends, maybe make peace with that chapter. But every street, every store, every restaurant reminded me of what I lost. Even simple things like going to the grocery store felt like walking through a graveyard of old memories. I'd run into her relatives from time to time. Some would look away. Others would make small talk out of pity. I remember one day running into her cousin at a gas station. He smiled awkwardly and said, "Heard you're doing okay, man. That's good." Then he walked off. No sincerity, no real care, just words. That's when it hit me. I didn't belong there anymore. So, I made the decision to move back home. I sold what little furniture I had left, packed my truck, and drove 8 hours north back to Pennsylvania, the same highway I once took full of dreams, now taking with hard-earned wisdom. Coming back felt strange at first. My parents still live in the same house I grew up in. The roads haven't changed much. The diners, the small shops, even some of the same neighbors. It all felt frozen in time. But I was different. Life aged me in ways you can't see in a mirror. When I got home, my mom hugged me like she was trying to heal every broken part of me. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just said, "You're home now." That meant everything. My dad, who's usually quiet and reserved, shook my hand and said, "Well, welcome back, son." That's all I needed to hear. At first, it was hard adjusting. I was so used to living for someone else that I had forgotten what it felt like to live for myself. I'd wake up some mornings and just sit on the porch, drinking coffee, thinking about how much I'd given up to make another person happy. The people here, my old friends, welcomed me back without judgment. A few of them joked around saying, "Man, we told you she was too good to be true," but it wasn't cruel. It was just their way of saying they cared. They saw what I'd gone through, and they respected the fact that I made it out standing tall. I got my old job back with the construction management company I used to work for. The boss, an old friend, told me, "We never replaced you properly, Justin. Glad to have you home." That gave me a sense of purpose again. There's something grounding about working with your hands, seeing real progress, and coming home tired but satisfied. Being back home gave me perspective I couldn't see while I was trapped in that marriage. When you're isolated in someone else's world, you start to believe their narrative, that you're the problem, that you're overreacting, that your gut feelings are paranoia. But when you're back around people who know your character, who've seen you at your best and worst, you remember who you really are. That's why I'm writing this email. Because I want men, especially younger men, to understand what I didn't. Moving for love sounds romantic, but it can destroy you if things go wrong. When you move into your partner's territory, you lose the safety net of familiarity. Every argument becomes 10 times heavier because you can't go cool off at your buddy's house. You can't go see your mom for Sunday dinner. You can't vent to people who understand you. You're surrounded by her family, her friends, her community, and if things sour, you're the outsider again. That dynamic creates silent power imbalances in a marriage. I didn't see it at first, but looking back, I realized how much it affected us. Her family's opinions always carried more weight. Every time we had a disagreement, she'd run to her mom or sister, and by the time we talked again, I was the villain. It wasn't intentional at first, but it became a pattern. One of the biggest regrets I have isn't just marrying the wrong woman. It's abandoning my foundation. I was raised in a place where people knew me, where I had deep roots, and I traded that for a fresh start built entirely on her terms. I thought that's what love was supposed to be. But what I didn't realize was that compromise without balance turns into self erasure. When I left my home, I left my community, my identity, and my leverage. If something went wrong, I had nowhere to go. I couldn't crash at my brother's place. I couldn't talk to my childhood friends face to face. I had to face everything alone, surrounded by her family members who saw me as the outsider who hurt their daughter, even when I was the one who got betrayed. And let me tell you something, true story, that loneliness is its own kind of pain. You can be in a crowded room full of people and still feel like a stranger when you're in someone else's world. After coming back, I've been rebuilding that sense of belonging I lost. I joined a local gym, started volunteering with a mentorship program for teenage boys, and reconnected with old hobbies. I go fishing every Saturday morning, same lake I used to visit as a kid. There's something about the stillness of the water that clears your mind. The first few months back home were full of reflection. I thought a lot about what I could have done differently, but eventually I realized there's no sense in living in the what ifs. What happened, happened. What matters is what I learned. If I could sit across from a younger version of myself, or any man who's considering uprooting his life for a woman, here's what I'd tell him. 1. Never move somewhere you don't have roots. If you're moving, make sure you've got something there beyond your relationship, a career, family, or friends of your own. Because if that relationship collapses, you'll need a foundation to stand on. 2. Keep your financial and emotional independence. Love doesn't mean dependency. Keep your own bank account, your own goals, your own hobbies. Don't let anyone convince you that full integration means giving up your individuality. 3. Understand that family loyalty runs deep. No matter how kind your partner's family seems, if push comes to shove, they will side with their own blood. It's human nature. Don't take it personally, but don't be naive about it either. 4. Never ignore your gut. If something feels off, like your partner pulling away or hiding things, don't gaslight yourself into thinking you're crazy. Trust is built on transparency, not blind faith. 5. Don't make love your entire life. A relationship should add to your life, not become your life. Keep your friendships alive. Keep your routines. Keep your identity separate. You should be two complete people coming together, not one person trying to complete another. Being back in my hometown has been like breathing fresh air after years underwater. I've got family dinners again. I laugh more. I sleep better. I've reconnected with my brother. We go hiking almost every weekend now. He told me something that stuck with me. You might have lost a wife, but you got your life back. He's right. I can honestly say I'm grateful for the pain now. It taught me everything I needed to know about self-respect, boundaries, and resilience. It stripped me down to nothing and forced me to rebuild stronger. Emily did reach out once after I moved back, just a simple text. Hope you're doing okay. I stared at it for a while and decided not to respond. There was nothing left to say. She made her choices and I made mine. I don't hate her. I just don't care anymore. Indifference is the final stage of healing. My life now is peaceful. Not exciting, not flashy, just peaceful. I get up early, go to work, eat dinner with my folks sometimes, and enjoy quiet evenings on my porch. There's something incredibly comforting about being surrounded by people who know you, who don't see you as the guy who got cheated on, but just as Justin, their friend, their brother, their son. If there's one thing I want listeners to take from my story, it's this. You can survive betrayal. You can rebuild, but you can't do it if you've isolated yourself for love. Don't abandon your roots for romance. If she's the right one, she'll build with you, not ask you to uproot everything for her convenience. Love should never cost you your identity. To every man out there thinking about making the same move I did, Think twice. Visit often, make plans together, but don't sacrifice your foundation for a relationship that hasn't proven it can weather storms. Because when the storm hits, you'll find out real quick who's standing with you and who's standing on the sidelines watching you drown. I learned the hard way, but maybe if my story helps one man avoid that same mistake, it's worth it.